Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here. And I want to thank the members of our law enforcement community for joining me today. These individuals are true heroes for the work that they do to keep us safe. Public safety is the first responsibility of the government. We don't have streets that are safe. Our economy and our schools suffer. Every Kentuckian has the right to live and move freely around their community without fear. Andy Beshear has failed in this obligation to support the men and women of law enforcement and has failed to protect our citizens. Between 2020 and now, cities across the country have been transformed by a liberal agenda that places the protection of criminals ahead of the safety of honest, hardworking citizens. Our cities have been staging grounds for liberal experiments that sought to blame society for the heinous actions of individuals. Few places have suffered more than Kentucky and our largest cities. 2020, our businesses were ravaged by masked vandals who broke windows, set fire, and stole without fear or repercussion. The damage that was done is still visible in the boarded up windows, graffitied walls, and vacant buildings that still dot our downtown years later. All the while, drug cartels continue to push more and more poison into the streets, frequently disguising deadly fentanyl with other substances, leaving bodies in their wake. Now, while Andy Beshear runs around the state saying that he's tough on crime, you and I know the facts. Nationally, rural America experienced 25% increase in homicides in 2020. And here in Kentucky, rural counties have seen a 68.5% increase in homicides. From 2019 to 2021, carjackings in Louisville increased by more than 200%. Louisville has experienced a historic high of murders for 3 years in a row, and under Andy Beshear's watch, Louisville has outpaced Chicago and Philadelphia's murder rates. What Andy Beshear has done in the face of these problems is little. He's been ineffective. He's been silent. He's made our crime problem even worse. Now, where people were rioting in 2020 and looting, he downplayed criminal activity. And while he was locking down our schools, he was unlocking our jails. In his first year in office, Andy Beshear released 1,700 criminals from jail. In just over a year, a third of the governor's getaways were charged with felonies. The job these guys have to do is hard enough without having a governor who opens the doors of the prisons and allows criminals to walk free. Under a Cameron administration, we will prioritize the safety of hardworking, law-abiding citizens again. We will talk about the profession of law enforcement honorably again. We will put bad people in jail and keep them there. And unlike the governor, I'm not offering talking points and empty promises. I'm offering Kentuckians a specific, hard-hitting plan of solutions. Today, I am unveiling an alternative vision and a new direction, the Cameron Public Safety Plan. It's a 12-point plan to address what I believe is the top responsibility of the government, to support our law enforcement officers and reduce crime. First, we will increase the recruitment and retaining of law enforcement officers. Derogatory rhetoric, false narratives, and generational challenges have made it harder than ever for departments all across the Commonwealth to attract new officers and keep talent on the force. Using lessons learned from successful models from around the country, we will lead a targeted campaign aimed at improving the narrative about police officers, encourage young Kentuckians to pursue law enforcement, and bring in eligible candidates from inside and outside the Commonwealth. In my administration's first budget, I will work with the General Assembly to develop a $5,000 recruitment and retention bonus for law enforcement. Under a Cameron administration, Kentucky will be the best place in America to be a police officer. Second, we will pass a bill to give the death penalty to those who kill our police officers. Attacks on police officers are on the rise, and the government must respond. As of July 1 of this year, 194 officers have been shot in the United States, up 30% from 2021. Kentucky has not been immune from the troubling trend. The men and women of law enforcement run into danger to protect and serve, and the government must do its part to protect them. As governor, I will work with the General Assembly to pass a law that mandates pursuing the death penalty anytime someone murders a police officer. Thirdly, we will oppose giving subpoena power to civilian review boards. I strongly believe the public should have faith in our law enforcement, and a strong relationship between police officers and the community is essential. Giving unelected, unaccountable activists the ability to investigate and harass police officers does not promote public safety or increase public trust. While holding the rare instances of gross police misconduct accountable is essential, I'll never support a civilian review board having subpoena power that interferes with the duty of law enforcement and undermines public trust. Fourth, we will build a culture that respects, supports, and highlights police at key events. Several times a year, there are important opportunities to highlight the hard work of law enforcement and the ultimate sacrifice some of our officers make, including National Police Week, Faith in Blue, and National Night Out, among others. I'll support these events directly and facilitate more opportunities for meaningful community interactions with police. Next, we will add a Kentucky State Police post in Louisville. Louisville faces historic challenges, from record overdoses and drug trafficking to record homicides wrought by gang violence. No governor should sit idly by as the state's largest city, an economic hub, is ravaged by violence and addiction. Andy Beshear has, I won't. That's why I propose building a new Kentucky State Police post which will work as a central hub to support the efforts of the LMPD and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. The post will utilize new resources, increase the size of KSP, and assist with rural drug and crime mitigation efforts by cutting off criminal activity closer to major sources. I will also see and make sure that no rural post is adversely affected. Now, in response to this proposal, Andy Beshear used it as a way to criticize me and to say I didn't have faith in Louisville Metro Police. I do. But I grew up in E-Town, a city that does have a KSP post. No one said having a Kentucky State Police presence there meant we didn't support the Elizabethtown Police Department. It meant that there were additional resources to fight crime. Sixth, I'll request the General Assembly pass a statewide wiretapping law for Kentucky State Police. Organized crime, from drug cartels to violent gangs, do harm to Kentuckians every single day. Kentucky law enforcement must have every available tool to keep our citizens safe. Today, KSP must partner with federal partners to maintain and to obtain wiretaps to investigate these heinous groups, which can slow the process of investigations and allow criminals to stay steps ahead of prosecution. I'll work with the General Assembly to pass a state-level wiretapping law, ensuring that it includes critical constitutional protections and judicial review procedures that mirror federal protections and prosecutions. Next, we will reform the parole board. Parole boards can play an important role in the criminal justice process, but they should never become activist organizations that undermine public safety. In recent years, the Kentucky Parole Board has attempted to release some of our state's most violent criminals. This is unacceptable. The Cameron administration will reform the parole board by working with the General Assembly to increase the vote threshold for release and allowing the governor to remove members at will. Eighth, we will increase penalties for drug traffickers who kill Kentuckians. As we all know, Kentucky is in the midst of a drug overdose crisis, and anyone who peddles deadly poison on our streets deserves harsh consequences. Kentucky should follow the examples of states like Texas, who have allowed for murder charges to be filed against drug dealers who push deadly substances like fentanyl. Ninth, we will use overdose mapping to surge resources to drug hotspots. Technology can help us save lives. By utilizing real-time information and investing in critical tools, the Kentucky State Police can coordinate with local law enforcement to react to regional spikes in overdoses. 10th, mandatory DNA collection for the most heinous crimes. The majority of states nationwide and in our region collect DNA when an individual is booked in connection with serious felonies like murder, rape, or burglary. Kentucky does not, making it harder to solve cold cases or to exonerate the wrongfully convicted. I'll work with the General Assembly to mandate this kind of collection for serious felonies, ensuring protections that automatically purge DNA in the case of an acquittal or dismissal with prejudice. 11th, we will pass a standalone carjacking statute. As carjackings continue to increase dramatically in cities around the county, in the country, including in Kentucky's largest cities, the Commonwealth remains in the minority of states which do not have a standalone carjacking statute. We're going to change that. And lastly, we will advocate for group violence intervention, otherwise known as GVI. For decades, group violence intervention efforts have been successful across the country at reducing gang violence. Despite bipartisan support for GVI in Kentucky, Governor Beshear and the Department of Corrections have stood in the way and limited the program's effectiveness. As governor, I will fully support the broad bipartisan coalition that has been working to implement these programs in the Commonwealth. Now, while this list is not exhaustive, these initiatives directly address the rise of crime, drug trafficking, and overdoses, and the need to retain and recruit officers in our state. I believe they will have a direct impact on the safety of our citizens and the morale of our law enforcement community. And I believe that we can get most of this ambitious agenda through the state legislature. Imagine the day that when we have a governor who has a relationship with the General Assembly, who can actually lead and deliver solutions for our state. I've done it as Attorney General, and I'll do it as governor. In fact, our campaign has already consulted with House and Senate leadership. They agree that reducing crime is something that we will be able to work on together. Kentuckians can trust that with me as governor, we will finally have leadership who can work with our supermajorities in Frankfort to reduce crime and support our law enforcement officers. Thank you all so much. And with that, happy to allow anyone here with me who would like to say a few words as well.
Tim Wakefield, I'm the Oldham County Sheriff. Thank you. Kentucky law enforcement should be very excited about a plan that's being put together like this. It's the first time in a very long time we've heard people say that we need to make improvements to recruit and retain quality officers and provide them with a safe and fair work environment to keep them here, keeping Kentuckians safe. And the plan continues to go in providing one of a great atmosphere for Kentuckians to live and be safe. I'll have to say in my 34-year career, this is the first time I've seen someone put together a comprehensive plan from recruitment to actual penalty phases to take care of the problems that are facing the Commonwealth today. So we're genuinely excited about this. Thank you.